All right, welcome to Out of the Blue from the Block and Podcast Network, part of the Fan First Sports Network. Gather round, all ye tired and hungry, for this is the Out of the Blue Podcast. I am Jared Stormer of the Block M Podcast Network and MaizenBrew.com. With me this week, filling in for Andy Bailey, the incomparable Kellen Voss, known for his prowess in the kitchen and defending the paint. Man makes a mean rack of ribs. How the hell you doing, my friend?
Jared, thank you so much. I love your intro. It's one of the best parts of this pod. I always love being on here. I always love filling in. I always love talking to you guys about Michigan hoops and just sports in general. I've been getting really into the sweet potatoes lately in the kitchen,
Okay,
big sweet potatoes, put some taco meat on there.
let's go.
We're on a little bit of a health grind here in our abode here at Royal Oak. So we're pushing through, but it's been a fun April.
I love that. I had literally beers and cigarettes for dinner the other night after the Pistons game. So, the
Sounds
opposite
about right.
here,
Yeah.
which we'll talk about in this podcast, man. But yeah, great to have you on a full guest host capacity. Haven't done one of these before. So appreciate you hopping in to chop it up with us, man. Decent amount to cover here. So let's go ahead and touch the banner. We'll have a bit of an extended touch the banner today. Talk some basketball roster stuff. The draft occurred. So some stuff to get into for sure. Let's start here on the football side where Burj Najarian has agreed to be the new assistant GM and strategy manager, according to ESPN. Previously, the director of football for the Patriots under Belichick for 24 years. So some experience there. And it's just like a very seasoned veteran football mind joining the Wolverines program.
Yeah, I mean, I like the hire. He has a little bit of Boston College expertise too, working under Bill O'Brien as well. So I mean, in terms of the roster construction, you couldn't do much better than New England did for that 2-decade period. And he was smart enough to not work for Bill Belichick at UNC. So it makes me like his judgment even more when it comes to that capacity.
Yeah, that's a pretty visible dumpster fire there at UNC. So I would have to agree there. Yeah, working with the Patriots through their dynasty, that'll do as far as football acumen. So excited to see what he brings and how he can help the program as well. Speaking of the draft, we'll go a little bit deeper here at some point, but want to talk some draft results here. Of the Wolverines drafted, there were a total of 6 drafted outright, as well as some undrafted free agents. Starting in the second round, pick number 44, your Detroit Lions, Derek Moore. Absolutely love this pick. They have to move up a little bit to get ahead of the Baltimore Ravens, who, despite not having John Harbaugh, do have some familiarity with that coaching staff and Derek Moore. So made a lot of sense there. What did you think of the pick?
Well, I loved it. It was a full circle moment with Derek Moore just 2 years ago when the draft was in Detroit, being the guy that brought up the national championship trophy on day 3 in the draft. And now he's a Detroit Lion. I mean, it's my favorite fit in terms of the Wolverines that were drafted. He can, play on the opposite side of Aiden Hutchinson. With Hutchinson and McNeil, he's probably never going to be double teamed. If you can get him to be the 8-9 year sack guy alongside that line, get some help with the Lions here, with pass rush being an obvious flaw over the past few seasons. It fits like a glove. I just love the clips coming out from Brad Holmes where the media, he walks in and he's just like laughing because the media has been asking him about an edge for years and years and years. And now he's like, here's your edge. And he ended up picking a good one.
Yeah, he did. And now you get a all edge rushing duo of Aiden Hutchinson and Derek Moore. That moves me greatly. Doesn't quite move me to tears, but it moves me to like, I'm welling up a little bit inside. Like I'm starting to feel some moisture accumulating in the sockets of my eyes. I love it. And yeah, it's been something that we needed to address now for years. And you get a highly productive edge rusher that played in the Big Ten, is a ring bearer, 24 and a half sacks, and getting to double-digit sacks last year with the mess we know was going on in Michigan. I think he should be commended for that, for sticking around and just being a true professional throughout the entire process. He's big too. He's like 6'4". There were some other undersized guys they could have considered there, but you're getting a big productive athlete that can slot in next to Aiden Hutchinson. I'm super excited, man. I'm super excited about this pick. It was my favorite pick for the Lions, and it was my favorite pick of the Wolverines that went as well. Makes a lot of sense.
It does. Everything I was reading was that he's a high floor guy. Like he might not blow you away with a lot of his measurables, but he's going to at the very least like be a low end starter for you at the end of the day. So I'll take that with the second round pick.
More surprisingly, also in the second round, tight end Marlon Klein goes pick number 59 to the Houston Texans. This one was a head scratcher in the moment. If you read a lot of draft coverage, which by and large is kind of useless, like that'll all be decided on the field. But this one really had a lot of people confused, particularly because the Texans have a pretty good tight end room as is, and Marlon Klein is very much an unfinished product. So, an interesting one. I'm certainly happy for him, and he's going into a program that knows a thing or two about drafting down there in Houston, but it was a weird one to me.
Yeah, a little weird. Now you get another Wolverine into that offense to go along with Nico Collins. More and more teams are using two tight end and three tight end sets in the NFL. That was kind of the big trend this past year, and it seems like it's going to continue to be a thing. You're stockpiling guys. I thought he was a very good blocking tight end at Michigan. His pass catching ability never really blew me away this past year, but it was odd because Houston does seem like a win now team in all capacity. But if you can develop him into being a capable tight end too for you, like that's what I see out of Marlon Klein. I talked to him in July at that golf event that I've referenced on here before, and he was just a consummate professional. And with everything going on behind the scenes, it makes you even more impressed with the poise that he was able to handle himself with and stuff. Germany guy, big friends with the Wagners. I think he's going to end up being just fine. But yeah, I mean, value wise, it's a little bit of a reach, but it's like all this draft coverage stuff. It's all like, well, based off my mock draft, it's a reach, and it's like, well, how do we know if your mock draft's right this time of year, that kind of a thing. So, like you said, I like that he's going to a good team and a good situation to be able to develop good habits.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a big run on tight ends happening there in the second and third rounds as well. So you had to get in and get yours, whoever you had highly rated. Did have him on our podcast as one of the guys likely to outperform his previous college level performance because there's an athlete in there and certainly very large. So excited to see what he can do. Next up was Jashawn Barham in the third round, went pick 92 to Dallas Cowboys. They've taken quite a few Wolverines over the last decade or so, adding Jashawn Barham there for the not in place of the departed Micah Parsons, but there was a pass rushing void. And Jashawn Barham can rush the passer. I'm not certain how much else he's going to be able to bring to the table, but glad to see him get drafted and a little bit earlier than I would have thought too.
Yeah, like you said, the Cowboys just took, I believe, Mozzie Smith and Luke Schoonmaker a few years ago, so they know their way
Mhm.
around the Wolverines. That Dallas defense could use a little bit of work, so it's nice getting him at your second level here for the Cowboys. And there's going to be a lot of attention on him, being that it's the Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones show. But Jason Barrian never seemed to shy away from that when he was at Michigan, so I think he's going to be just fine.
Yeah, don't headbutt in any referees, and you should be fine there, sir. In the fourth round, the Detroit Lions go back to the Wolverine well and grab linebacker Jimmy Rolder. Again, this one surprised me. Pretty much everyone except Derek Moore. I was a little surprised for how early they went. Just goes to show you that these guys have some familiarity, with the Wolverines and all the winning that's happened there last year excluded. There's reason to believe there's good talent here at Michigan. And Jimmy Rolder comes in a position that the linebackers need, or excuse me, that the Lions need after losing Anzalone in the linebacker room. So I'm excited to see it. Jimmy Rolder kind of, again, like he can do one thing. I don't know that he can be very multiple for you. I don't know that he's going to be great in coverage. But we needed a body, and at this point in the draft, in the fourth round, you're just hoping to get snaps. You're hoping
Yeah,
Jimmy
and
Rolder
like
can come in and take some snaps.
when it comes to round four, like you're not necessarily looking for guys that can do everything, right? Like he's going to be a
Mhm.
depth piece for the Lions with them losing Anzalone, with Derek Barnes' health always kind of being a question mark. You can pencil him into that second team with the Lions, maybe get him some special team reps, and perhaps he develops into a little bit of a hybrid type, drop back into coverage, blitz for you a little bit. I'm not sure how much he's going to see the field this year, but nice for him
Mhm.
to be able to stay in the state of Michigan.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And getting a pair of Wolverines to add to Aiden Hutchinson. I'm always in favor of it, keeping guys home. I
Yeah.
mean, if you just drafted Wolverines every year, you'd probably be able to build a pretty good team. So excited for him again, earlier than I would have expected. In the fifth round, also earlier than I would have expected for a fullback, Max Bredesen goes pick 159 to the Minnesota Vikings, reuniting with his boy JJ McCarthy. JJ McCarthy was there when he was drafted, popped on the Zoom, which was great to see. Yeah, the Vikings, doing some interesting stuff. It's really going to come down to quarterback for them, but what a great addition. And I really hope to get to see JJ and Bredesen on the field together. That would be very cool, even if it is for a division rival.
Yeah, I was doing our draft coverage on Saturday for the ABC affiliate out here in Detroit, and what I was reading is that the Vikings are one of the teams that still utilize a fullback quite a bit. And so Max Bryson's kind of a perfect fit when it comes to that. It sounded like he was one of, if not the best fullback type in this draft. Like you said, I was also surprised that he went here, but nice to see him reunite with JJ McCarthy. And it now sucks that we now have to root against him as Michigan and Lions fans. I hopefully he doesn't come around on a crack block and light Aiden Hutchinson up.
Just twice a year. Other than that, I don't really care what happens. They can go win every other game so long as they lose to the
Yeah.
Lions. So
Hmm.
was excited for him. And then the last Wolverine taken, defensive tackle Rayshon Benny, 7th round pick, 250 to the Baltimore Ravens. So reuniting with Jesse Minter there. And yeah, man, good for him. Was kind of surprised to see Jimmy Rolder go before Benny. Like, I think this is good value in the 7th round. I think Benny could end up being a rotational guy for you.
Absolutely. And with a guy like Minter that's familiar with his skills and familiar with his talents, like obviously 7th round pick, you're not going to expect a whole lot out of him, but to be able to get that continuity and stuff is going to be huge for that Ravens defense.
Absolutely. Some undrafted free agents. Donovan McCulley, who I kind of thought someone might take a shot on. Another guy that could outperform, what you saw last year as a pro, goes to the Miami Dolphins. Damon Payne Jr. to the Chiefs. They've had some success taking Wolverines late or undrafted. Edge rusher TJ Guy also going to the Ravens there. So some guys that Minter's familiar with. And Dom Zavada goes to the Giants. Who do you think here ended up in the best situation? Who has the best chance to stick?
Probably TJ Guy in terms of what we know with Minter, in terms of the defensive ability and stuff, being able to play alongside Rayshon Benny and another Wolverine, David Ajabo, that's over there still fighting for snaps, fighting for minutes. That Ravens defense has kind of always been at a pinnacle spot, and you're going to get a new coach, obviously there, new coaching staff in place, but I think that we could see if the injury bug hits the Ravens like it always seems to. I think we could get some TJ Guy snaps on Sundays here.
Yeah, officially Guy Island. I leave the island after having built a navy that's kind of in shambles, but like don't have to collect rainwater. We have water filtration. We were able to feed many a generation of families on Guy Island. Feel like that ended up being a hit, a pretty good career for the Wolverines. And I don't think he was super highly rated. So I think, with where he came in and what was expected of him, I think that was a good career for TJ Guy. Not going to blame
Yeah,
him for
yeah,
last
he's
year.
he's your he's your prototypical case of a guy who kind of just got steadily got better year after year, and it is now going to be fighting for an NFL spot and could be a guy we see on Sundays. So that's exactly what you want to see out of guys developing in the program.
Yeah, I think Dom Zavada will get a real shot with the Giants if he can just shake off with the kicker. It's so mental, what was happening last year. So if he just comes in, we certainly know he has the talent. Like if he comes in and he's drilling kicks early, like why wouldn't he get a shot in New York? So be interested to see about that. And then the Dolphins took a couple other receivers and receiving threats, but McCulley was a guy I thought could go in the 6th or 7th round. Like the offense last year was an absolute disaster. It was not his fault. I
Yeah,
think if
yeah.
McCulley played for like a real team last year, he would have put up serious numbers.
And not to mention too that like the emergence of Andrew Marsh kind of
Right.
hurt his draft stock a little bit because he kind of became the go-to target for Bryce, and so Donovan never really got a chance to get that way. But when I went to that same golf event in July, he was kind of like the leader of the wide receiver room already. Great high character guy. I think he's gonna end up seeing the field for the Miami. Not a very good team at the moment. So, but maybe that just means there's more opportunity coming his way.
Yep. Yep. Wish all these guys the best. And, certainly for Roller and more, we'll be updating you on their progress there. And I think Zion Young went one pick after to the Baltimore Ravens. So a big inflection point. You'll have data points early on if they made the right pick there, if one of those edges that came off the board shortly after was the way to go. So Derek Moore, pretty important pick, low key for Brad Holmes, who's kind of up and down after some early massive success.
Yeah, I mean, what we saw from Holmes, it kind of changed up a little bit in terms of his philosophy. I think that he went after his guys almost to too much of a detriment the last few years, and we
Mhm.
did see him actually target needs in this draft, which I think a lot of Lions fans were happy to see. Consensus grades seem to be pretty high with the Lions, but it's also like, how much do you weigh those this time of year? Because we haven't really even seen these guys in a rookie camp setting, let alone actual snaps on the field. In terms of what we got on paper, in terms of players we got, like I kind of have the same mindset as my dad, where it's like I'm gonna give Brad Holmes the benefit of the doubt
Mhm.
until he proves that he doesn't deserve it anymore.
100%. And look, I'm a home supporter. I think he's a really good GM. I think the good outweighs the bad. But that 2024 draft, Terrion Arnold, Enish Rakestraw, Giovanni Manu, Sione Vaca, Makai Wingo, and then Christian Mahogany in the 6th round, probably the best of the bunch there, unless Terrion Arnold can figure out whatever the hell's going on with him and provide reliable minutes. I think Rakestraw is probably a bust at this point. So, and then there's also the trade last year for Tesla, which I don't necessarily love. So there's some good and some bad now. So this is a big draft class for him. Not that there'll be like job security issues. He's good, but just to kind of reestablish that he's one of the best in the business.
Oh yeah, and the draft is just one part of the job. It's the
Sure.
part that he's excelled at. But in terms of the rest of the roster management, I think the Lions got better this offseason, which is exactly what you want to see.
Absolutely. Quick aside here, heard it on a couple different podcasts, including Bill Simmons, who I know you're a listener of. Is the draft a good hang? Like either watching it in person or on TV? Like, is this a good hang or is it actually the draft coverage that's the best part about it?
So I actually attended the draft 2 years ago when it was in Detroit, and
Nice.
I had a great time. It was really busy. There's a whole lot of fans there. It's kind of like a large music festival in a sense, where there's just like people everywhere, kind of a sense. But it was also like they had the main stage where the draft was, and they would announce the picks. Like they would do the TV announcements, and then they would have like music in between to keep the fans there entertained. But if you didn't want to be in that crowd of people, you could go over to they had a local food trucks area. They had a whole area over by the river where they had like displays of like footballs from the Pro Football Museum. They had like signed jerseys of some famous Lions players. They had like little silhouette cutouts of football players. You get your picture taken and stuff. I saw a lot of families there with their kids. Like it's a fun. It's one of those things where it's a fun few hours because it feels like a carnival event for football fans. But now that I've experienced it once, I don't think I would go out of my way to go to it unless like my dad wanted to go to one in a city that was nearby, or like my brothers wanted to go in a city that was nearby. In terms of watching it on TV, kind of depends on how you digest it. ESPN's coverage really leans into the drama of, oh, he's playing for his mother who died in this thing, or he's playing for cousin's, dog who has cancer and
It's
that
like
kind of a thing.
none of his
I
family had legs,
Yeah,
and it's just like, all
exactly.
right.
Yeah, and it's like but all these networks, like there's guys that you like watching. Like the last few years, I've kind of swayed more towards NFL Network with Daniel Jeremiah. I think Rich Eisen does a good job hosting that show,
Hmm.
and you just get a lot of good analysis there. Joel Klatt was on it, your boy, for the first few days, so it was a good little bit of insight there. I always like the draft because I always like seeing the highs of these guys, and like you and Andy, like I watch all these guys in college football, so it's nice seeing them now, seeing their dreams be fulfilled in that sense. My favorite moment of the draft for me was when Ruben Bain was clearly pissed getting drafted 15, and then he like throws on the hat, doesn't even go through the cutesy little social media tunnel, and just walks out with a vengeance. Like that guy's going to be a great football player. Just how angry he was and the chip on his shoulder that he got from that draft. Like, oh man, I would be excited if I were a Bucks fan because I was kind of
Yeah.
hoping he would follow the Lions, honestly. But
Yeah, a lot to take away there. I think it could be a great hang if it's like certain circumstances, like you and
yeah,
three buddies, you got the weekend off. It's normally the golf trip weekend. The wives give you permission. It's like, boys, Pittsburgh. And then, like, especially if your team has a pick in like the top 10, it's an exciting draft. You can really go get a playmaker, be like, oh, I was there the day, Josh Allen was drafted if you're a Bills fan or something like that. But if you're hanging out to the 6th round and like your wife's there and she's miserable and you're in like Pittsburgh, not Miami, and you're just like, no, honey, we got to hang out. In the 6th round, I think we could get Dan Jackson, the safety out of Georgia. Like that's psychopath behavior. It's
yeah.
truly
It was
psychopath behavior.
I was there with my fiance, now wife, and she had a good time. Granted, it was like really good weather, and we only really stayed for the fourth round and most of the fifth. So I saw Manu get drafted and Sione Baki get drafted. But it's like, yeah, half the guys you vaguely heard of, and half the guys it's like, who's this person? So I mean, I think that if it were in another Midwest city, I would go again, but I don't think I would go out of my way to travel to it again. I've experienced it once.
I'm with you. All right, sir. You're rocking the Pistons shirt. I didn't bring mine here down south, but nonetheless, I'll be watching as much as it kills me. I literally had cigarettes and beer for dinner the other night after that Pistons loss because I was too sick to my stomach for anything else. We got to do a little Pistons corner here because I've got a man that knows Pistons ball and has shared some of the concerns about this team off air as we were talking about it. So Pistons down 2-1 in this series. We were recording this on Monday, April 27th, about an hour and a half from. Obviously, we'll be locked into what is a huge game, huge swing point, an inflection point for this roster, for this organization moving forward after a 60-win season. Dangers up against an 8-seeded Orlando Magic.
Yeah, this Magic team has been really impressive, and they were kind of a team that was kind of a dark horse like pick to make it far in the East, and the injury bug just hit them at the worst possible times this year, and now they're healthy, and they've just been better than the Pistons. You know, the Pistons. I was there for Game 2 in Detroit, and other than that big third quarter where they went on like the 38-6
30
run or
to
whatever,
3 run.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was like the only time that we've seen the Pistons be as dominant as they were in the regular season. And we were talking about this before the pod, like through the regular season, you know, some teams are half-assing it, some teams are, you know, kind of injured, you know, you're kind of picking out your roster, picking your spots kind of thing. And in that setting, the Pistons just got by with their defense and their physicality and just out muscling teams, the old gritty Detroit basketball that fans love. But now that we're in the playoffs and everybody's kind of playing that same brand of physicality, like you're really seeing the weaknesses on this Pistons roster. You know, Cade's been good. I think that this last game was probably his worst, and he turned the ball over a little too much. But it's also like you can't really put a whole lot of blame on him because there's just not a whole lot of help around him. I'm sick of watching Tobias Harris clang 17 footers off the back of the rim. I'm sick of Jalen Duren like struggling offensively, and Ozzer Thompson has had some bright spots here and there, but there's just not a lot of help in terms of the half court offense, and it's really been killing the Pistons. The Magic have just been the better team for the majority of the series. I think 10 of the 12 quarters I read or something like that was that Orlando has beaten the Pistons or outscored the Pistons or something like that. Like they've looked like the one seed in this series so far.
Yeah, Jalen Duren in this one, 8 points, 9 rebounds, 5 blocks. You know, there was some rim protection going on, but that's
Mhm.
mostly to do with Orlando also having kind of a clogged toilet offense at times and just dribbling into the paint. Yeah, Jalen Duren, brother needs a map. He's lost out
Yeah.
there. It's been really, really rough. And I mean, if anything, like it at least should tell you, okay, here's a data point. We cannot pay this guy $200 million
Yeah.
and expect to be a competent NBA basketball team. Still very young, but this is a huge prove it game for him. The paint has been an absolute parking lot. And Cade Cunningham, man, it's been awesome. Was not very good in game 3 with the turnovers, but still overall, you look at the numbers. I think he's averaging 31 points per game. He is the only thing that really works consistently on offense. And I harped on it last week. It was so obvious to anyone that watches a great deal of Pistons basketball that this was going to happen come playoffs. And it's a
Mhm.
bad matchup to get a healthy Orlando team playing their best ball right now. Like, I think you'd much rather have Philadelphia with no Embiid or the Raptors or somebody that we match up better against. But nonetheless, like you had to recognize that this was going to happen come playoff basketball, and all our worst fears are being realized right now in
Yeah,
real
I
time.
mean they really do need some more consistent scoring. Like I said, like Tobias has not been very good. Duncan's been hit or miss. You know, the veterans have given you a little bit off the bench and Levert and Javante Green and Kevin Herter and stuff. But Duran, who was your second fiddle all year long, has been was a consistent mainstay all season long, and all star was looking to get paid this offseason. And he has just really struggled these last few games. And you know, obviously there's a whole lot of room to grow in terms of what we've seen so far. He's still a young guy. But this is a huge game for him, and you got to wonder too, with this being a young team that hasn't played a whole lot of playoff games. You're only 2 years removed from the team that only won 14 games, so you got to wonder how much the pressure of all this is starting to get to them a little bit. Obviously, they're all somewhat confident, being that they're in the NBA. But like the more and more, you know, these guys are on social media, these guys are on their phones, like they're seeing it too. They're aware of the struggles and whatnot. I really hope that they can flush all of it and get a win semi handily tonight, and then you go to Detroit and you pick up a win on Wednesday, and then all of a sudden it's 3-2, and this is a whole different conversation. But you know, you kind of really need to win the game tonight, and if you don't, then you're looking at an embarrassing end to what was previously a pretty exciting season.
Yeah, and then you worry about overreactions, like you overreact to this and you blow up the roster.
Hmm.
It just needs some addition because in year 5 of Cade Cunningham, we started a fourth quarter playoff game with Danish Jenkins, Duncan Robinson, Javante Green, Tobias Harris, and Paul Reed. Now, all due respect to those guys, because I love all of them. They are favorites all, but that's egregious, man. So we're gonna do a quick little draft. Whenever we can shoehorn in a draft, we're gonna do it. Draft up the best players in this series. I will go ahead and take first pick, and I'm taking Cade Cunningham, best player in the series
I
for sure.
I think you have to go Paulo after that. He's had his moments here and there, but when he's at his best, I think that he's the next best guy in this series.
Happy to take my boy Franz Wagner here. He's really
Yeah,
starting to come on.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll take
And
Franz here. I think
it
that's clearly the third best player in the series.
and I see why you did this exercise because I think I now have to go with Desmond Bain with how much Duran
Hmm.
has struggled, and you could put Auzer here and stuff, but I think that Bain was the biggest reason why they won Game 3, and his shooting really scares me in terms of that.
Asar's been better overall in the series because I would say his defense has been like keeping us in this at times.
Mm.
But offense is just more impactful than defense. And Desmond Bain's shooting, even when he's not hitting shots, is impacting the game. I would still take Desmond Bain slightly over Asar Thompson, but that's a conversation there. I'll take Asar Thompson next as the best
Yeah,
player in the
yeah, and then
series.
from there, I mean, Duran hasn't been there. They just haven't had a whole lot of consistency outside of Cade and
I'd go
Auzer.
Suggs.
Yeah, I think I'd have to go Suggs or Anthony Black, honestly.
Yeah, yeah, and then like you're getting into Tobias Harris, you're getting into Isaiah Stewart, you're getting into Anthony Black, something
Yeah.
like that. Like I still think Isaiah Stewart like is overall a better player, but like
Mhm.
would you take him or Anthony Black right now? Pistons dramatically need more creation. I bet Anthony Black would probably help them more right now.
1,000%. Anthony Black would help them tremendously in their half court offense alone. Just giving another guy for Cade to pass to and stuff alone would be tremendously
Yeah.
beneficial.
Yeah, so I think that exercise about shows it, and then like you'd look at Jalen Duren because we know the players in there, but like
Mhm.
can a 6'10", 6'11" center that doesn't offer great rim protection or outside shooting, just
Yeah.
bully his way into the paint when there's no spacing? I think we all kind of knew the answer would be no, and it's proving to be
I
true.
heard a stat today on the Pistons Pulse, a really good Pistons podcast. They were saying
Love
that
that podcast.
he previously averaged like 1.5 free throws, I think it was, driving to the basket. He was going to the basket and getting fouled, and he hasn't even had one single drive this series where he's like gone face up to the basket, gotten fouled, and getting to the line. That added a whole nother layer to the Pistons offense this past season, and we just haven't seen that a whole lot out of him. And granted, like, I don't want to sound too negative here. Like, I hope there's egg on our face today. I hope that Jalen Duren
I'm
goes for
hoping
like
for a
20.
25 and
I hope it's like
14.
25, 12, 5 blocks. Pistons win by 15. And Jalen
Love it.
Duren's like, I've earned every bit of money that I deserve. I hope that
I'd be
that's the
fine with it.
case. But in terms of what we've seen so far, he just like, I hate doing the ESPN, like, he has to step up, but like he really does have to be the
He
guy that
does.
steps up for the Pistons here with how it's been this year. Unfair or not to him, like he was the second guy all year long, and this is your time to prove it.
Absolutely, because if not, I mean, the payday is probably going down quite a bit. Michigan will
Yeah.
have the first rights to sign him, but if somebody wants to give him a max, you might just have to let him walk. Like if that's the case, or I think
Mhm.
you could still do a sign and trade, but you just
Yeah,
can't give him a
you could
max.
get him you could offer him a 5th year, but then at the end of the 5th year, he'd be an unrestricted. So, I mean, it's an option we don't see super often because a lot of times you know what you're getting after 4 years with guys. We thought Duran was on this path and path and path, and hopefully we're just overreacting to these 3
I
games and
hope
he
so.
gets it settled. But I mean, it's hard to commit that much money to him right now. And
Yep.
it'll depend too on all NBA teams. I think if he makes an all NBA team, his threshold for how much money he can make
Mhm.
skyrockets. But with the exception of Cade and Luca now being able to make those all NBA teams, I think he might be one of the guys that gets squeezed out.
Might, yeah, something to
Yeah.
keep an eye on for sure. All right, well, like we said, huge game for tonight. So we'll be watching that. That one is in Orlando. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, the Michigan men's basketball team roster starting to take shape. We're going to have a roster discussion, a little more draft talk. We'll be back right after this. All right, we are back. We are righteous men. Sports in the D are very good. It's April in the D. And I mean, the most stressful watch has been the Pistons, but you got the draft, you got the Tigers who have started to show some life. Great time to be a sports fan in Detroit,
Oh,
especially you
yeah.
get some good weather. Pretty elite.
Shout out Spencer Torkelson, 5 home runs in a row.
Yeah, seriously,
Slammed his
that's
OPS like 300 points just in the past week. That man is on a
that'll do.
heater right now. Yeah.
He is on a heater of heaters, so that's been fun. But we are going to talk some college basketball in this one as the roster starting to take shape. Maybe a domino or two, maybe a Juke Harris domino that could still fall, although that one may be leaning the other direction. But obviously, we already spoke about JP Estrella, the power forward, committing to Michigan. He'll be part of this discussion. But as far as news, since we last spoke on this podcast, it's been LSU transfer forward Jalen Reed and Cincinnati transfer center Mustafa Cham, who have committed to play for Dusty May in the Wolverines. Kellen, if you want to give your thoughts on Estrella real quick before we get into these other guys, I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of his. Tennessee is we saw it with Rick Barnes, like they're going to offensive rebound, they're going to muck it up in the paint. He played that to a T, shot 59% from the field, third leading scorer on a good Tennessee team. I watching his tape earlier today, I thought he was a really good dunker in traffic. I thought he was really good as a post player. I liked his hook shot, almost probably better than a Diamara's, to be quite honest. He had a nice little 15-foot little push shot that he had off the pick and roll. He's a really good pick and roll player. I think he gets to play really well next to Elliot Cadeau. And then they were talking about it on the Hoops podcast earlier over the weekend. You probably will see him a little bit more on the perimeter with Michigan than you saw with Tennessee. And so you kind of hope that it's in the mold of Danny Wolf and Morez Johnson, where you see him stretch out his game a little bit when you come in with Michigan and adapt to what he's doing. So by all means, he's one of the best bigs out of the portal, and it makes sense for him to commit to Michigan. I think he slots right in as your starting four and could be your second or third leading scorer on this team next year. There's a lot to
Could
like about
easily
him, honestly.
could easily see it. Currently enjoying an Estrella Cerveza down here in Panama City in honor of JP Estrella. And
Yeah.
I agree, man. I think he immediately becomes one of your better scoring options. A little Liam McNeely, a little Jake LaRavia in there, a guy that can
Yeah.
stretch the floor, brings you something just different. And honestly, in 2 short years, Dusty May, I love roster building, and he's become my absolute favorite roster builder because he's
Mhm.
like, well, all right, so we can't get it done the exact same way we did it last year. Like, how do we put out there an interesting and diverse like roster that can line up, that can do a lot and can attack you different ways, but still be good enough defensively? And you bring in a JP Estrella here, and it's like he is not Danny Wolf, and he is certainly not Morez Johnson. It's a different kind of player, but still is going to impact the game. So getting him and then getting Jalen Reed, who as we switch to him, I think like a little bit more of a high upside swing, less of a sure thing than Estrella, where it's like, okay, I know Estrella is playing minutes every night. Like Jalen Reed, it's probably just more of a health thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're concerned about the health, number one. He ended 2024, tore his ACL, so that season got cut short. And then he had some sort of an Achilles injury last season. It's unclear if it was a rupture or what exactly it was, but both seasons were cut short. And you really hope that that doesn't limit his burst and limit his athleticism, because that was a huge part of his game at LSU. A really good athlete, good rim runner. I thought he was really good on handoffs as a secondary driver and stuff. Another good finisher in traffic. He could be a stretch four off the bench for you. Shot about 42% from three on 1.2 attempts. So smaller sample, but there's tools in that bag. He probably could be a little more physical, but he's a good rebounder. He's probably a versatile backup big that could play a 4 and a 5 in a pinch. And yeah, like you said, health's probably the main thing with him. You just really hope that he can stay healthy. But like you said, like they kind of have the flexibility to be able to take those big swings. And in terms of roster construction, he probably slides in as one of your first guys off the bench and could be a versatile forward for you coming off the bench. Reminded me a little bit of Trey Jackson in terms of his athleticism, in terms of his ability to drive to the basket. Probably a little bit bigger than Trey was, but yeah, I think you really hope that he can stay healthy, because there's a lot to like about his game.
If he can stay healthy, you're right. I mean, probably comes right off the bench and backs up Estrella. And then it's like, man, like Estrella goes to the bench. Here's another guy that can stretch, can get his own offense a little bit. 79 games across 4 seasons. So again, miss some time in there. But
Yeah.
even just as a shooter, I think, he'll at least be able to stretch the floor for you. And if you're playing with one of the many creators Michigan's going to have, I think that they'll be able to get him looks. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, obviously pulling for him, but again, just adding yet another interesting big man there. And then
Yeah, and
the last piece,
you gotta remember too, like, they gotta replace Will Cheddar's minutes somewhere, right? So it's
right?
like he kinda
Exactly.
he's not the exact same player, but he kinda slots into a similar role where if you're in foul trouble with, Cham and Estrella, you can count on him to get you some more minutes in certain games and can be more of a guy you count on at Big Ten games that are gonna have more fouls and whatnot, so.
And a bit of a swing player, right? Because high ceiling. Like at
Oh,
one point,
yeah,
this guy was considered like an NBA prospect. So there's a ceiling here as well that I think could be interesting. So yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely. Why not take the swing there? And then yeah, as you mentioned, the last piece of it, Cincinnati transfer center Mustafa Cham. He's out of Senegal, 7'2", 250 pounds. As a sophomore, average 13.7 rebounds, 1.6 blocks, 52% from the field, and made 38 3-pointers in 2 college seasons. So like I think that's more than Mara took for sure.
Yeah.
Even dividing that in two across 2 seasons.
Mhm.
So something that's really a part of his bag. What did you think about watching this guy's tape?
Yeah, I really like this guy. There's definitely some room for improvement. I know that uh, I would imagine they started scouting him after the scrimmage because they lost in a scrimmage to Cincinnati at the beginning of the year. There was no Adai and no Merez, but Mustafa played really well in that game. Had like 15 points, just destroyed Michigan inside. He can do a lot of things you like from your 7-footer. He's a great lob threat. He's a great rim protector. He's not afraid to challenge dunkers at the rim. I really like that about his game. He's got a little bit of a face-up game to him. Like he can kind of like make a move, quick move with the ball 12, 15 feet away from the basket. One theme that I'm seeing with all of these bigs is they're all really good in the pick and roll. And I think that that's going to be something that Dusty's cut his bread and butter on the pick and roll. I mean, when you search him on YouTube, some of the first stuff that comes up is his clinics on how to run pick and roll offenses and stuff. So that's going to be his bread and butter at Michigan. It has been the past few years, and all these guys can be able to fit into that mold. The one thing I want to see him put on more weight and get stronger, especially in his base. At 250 listing, I think that's a little generous. I'm not quite sure he's exactly 250. He got pushed off of his spot a lot. One of the first things you notice, and Eric Shapiro pointed this out on the U and Boop spot, one of the first things you notice when you watch him play is he's got really nice feet and really nice footwork, but he gets pushed off his spot a lot. Kind of what you saw early with the Daimara, where he'd go to post and then guys would kind of push him out a few feet with that. And then when he catches, he's kind of like his legs he's not really going towards the basket. There's a lot of stuff like fading away, that kind of a thing. I want to see him get stronger, work with Matt Aldridge, get him stronger in the weight room and stuff, especially with his legs. Maybe put on a little bit more weight, but in terms of the tools that are there, like you said, in a vacuum, like he can be your rim protector, he can be your lob threat, step out, hit a couple threes. I'm not sure his upside's quite as high as it dies, but there's a lot to like about him as a player. And if you can get him to click like you've gotten the other, like Michigan's gotten the other bigs to click the last few years, that's a really good player that increases Michigan's ceiling significantly.
Yeah, you nailed it right there at the end. The most exciting part about it is this is a match made in heaven. Dusty May, now the proof is in the pudding. Like, this is where you want to go if you want to develop as a big. So, all the things that he does, there's so much in the toolbox. You have to be excited about the upside. I think it's a big upside play because if he is hitting threes regularly, if he can utilize that face up game, not bad rim protection, like you said, got pushed off his spots, but like how many bigs are we going to see that are able to do that? We'll kind of talk about some of the guys that decided to return next year, and it'll be a pretty loaded college basketball class, I think, as far as upperclassmen and guys sticking around. But if he can hit on all of these tools, get a little bit bigger, those are all realistic things to expect in the Dusty May and the Michigan program. Like putting on the weight, that's going to be an expectation that we need you to
Yeah.
put on X amount of weight there. And then can you develop like Wolf has and like Golden has and like Adai Mara and Morez Johnson have? And if you can show that amount of growth with everything in the toolbox, that sounds like a pretty interesting player to me. I'll agree with you that the ceiling's probably not as high as Mara, because Mara's shot blocking instincts, like I don't know that you can teach those in there,
Hmm.
but it's certainly an interesting player and like a unique style. And I like bigs that can do a lot of things that are multiple like.
Well, yeah, he's got multitudes to him, honestly. Like he has the chance to the upside there in terms of being more than your prototypical 7-footer is really encouraging. The one thing you do have to wonder is going after Cham and Reed and Estrella and having them in place. is do they know that Mara and Merez are gone from that
Yeah.
standpoint? Because now you got three bigs right there, and you kind of have to assume that they're planning their roster knowing that that decision is coming.
It seems like it, where it previously it seemed like maybe Morez Johnson was going to stick around. And we got the news that they would be entering their names into the draft, just exploratory, along with Elliot Cadeau, who also did that, almost definitely exploratory there, just kind of
Yeah,
seeing where they need to be. So they
Cadeau's
could
flat
all
out come
still
out.
come
Yeah,
back.
Cadeau's flat out said that he's going to come back to Michigan. This
Yeah,
is just it makes sense for every guy to put their name in
you
the
should
draft just so
absolutely
they
do
can
it. Doesn't hurt
know.
you.
Yeah, just so they can know what they want to focus on and improve upon to improve their draft stock. Like you'd be
100%.
yeah, that's just the way the modern game is at this point. But I think I've seen reports now from multiple insiders that both Merez and Mara are leaning towards staying in the draft. I think
Hmm.
that in terms of value that you're getting NIL versus draft pick. The whole discussion last year with Yaxel was if he could be under a 20, pick 20 in the draft, that Michigan could match that NIL total. We don't really know a whole lot of the financials from there, but I think that Mara probably goes a little bit higher than Merez because of his because of his shot blocking ability and stuff. But if both guys feel like they're confident in their ability and both guys feel confident in their evaluations this week and they want to go play and start their NBA careers, like I'm not going to feel some type of way about them. Like, of course, it'd be nice to see them play at Michigan and defend this title, but it's like, why would Michigan want to hold you back in terms of your pro career and stuff? This is what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a leaping ground towards turning guys into getting them ready for their professional careers and stuff.
They're ring bearers, Kellen. Like they can
Yeah.
do whatever they want. Once you get a ring for me, like in our program and for Michigan fans, go be great, young kings.
Yeah.
And also a couple things that have happened is some other players that probably would have gone just ahead of them have withdrawn from the draft. Thomas
Mhm.
Haw at Florida, Braylon Mullins is coming back. So now Mara's just creeping up that draft board, as is Mojo probably.
Yeah.
Like he's probably in the 20s now, and Mara's probably flirting with the lottery. Like I'm
Mhm.
starting to just call my shot and think he will go
Yeah.
in the lottery. And yeah, with the moves, it likely means one, if not both, are moving on, and both will probably end up in pretty good situations with where they're going to be drafted, kind of in that sweet spot in the draft there. And obviously, just wishing them well. So, how does that likely shake out then? What's your early go, your early guess at what the roster looks like opening night next year?
I mean, and I put this in the doc. I think that your starting lineup probably looks something to the effect of Cadeau, McKenney, Brandon McCoy, that 5-star coming in, and then Estrella and
Sean?
Chom. And then you got Reed off the bench. You got Quinn Costello off the bench. LJ will eventually be coming back once he get returns from his ACL. The other recruits that you got in there as well. Hartman, I think, will get some minutes this year and everything. It's a good group. I think it would be it's not going to be as deep as it was this past year.
No,
I don't think that any team in college basketball, quite frankly, is going to be as deep as
maybe ever
Michigan was
again.
this past year. Yeah. But there's a whole lot to like there. It's a very Dusty May roster. It's a lot of adaptable, switchable guys, a lot of guys that haven't really seen their full potential as college basketball players. And you have the continuity of Elliott and Trey McKenney, guys who have been through the wars, guys who have hit big shots for you in big games down the stretch, leading this team. There's a whole lot to like about this roster and everything. And then the one guy that we're kind of waiting to hear on is Juke Harris, who's the Wake Forest guard. He was linked to Michigan earlier this offseason, and now Tennessee. New report from On3 from Joe Tipton today said that Tennessee appears to now be in the lead now for him. He's a great athlete, great length at the guard spot, played really good well in the game against Michigan in November. I think he had 19 in that game that Michigan probably should have lost. But ferocious dunker, he would be a guy that probably slides into that starting lineup if you can get him to play at Michigan. That pushes everybody down and gives you a little bit of depth there that wise. He's a guy that I would want to see on Michigan personally, but I think that it's a good roster with or without him. And he's kind of the one guy that you're waiting on. Might have to wait until that June 1st like draft deadline to fully get a decision on him because I think he is also entering the draft as well.
Yeah, he can play the two, and that all of a sudden makes you able to play a really, really big, really big backcourt there, which would be
Yeah.
exciting and interesting. But I mean, I would love to have him. I agree with you. That would be a great get. I'm looking at the roster though, and what you just said is the likely starting lineup, which I would agree right now on April 27th seems like it. Feels like it lacks some physicality to me. Certainly lacks the physicality and the punch of last year's team, which, like you said, may never be recreate it again. But that's putting a lot on Cham to be physical. And
Yeah.
Estrella, I think, can play long. I don't know if he can play big down in the block, So that'd be interesting to see. And then like who's coming off that bench to really provide some physicality. Will Cheddar was a big human being and certainly
Mhm.
provided some of that as well. So I would like to see, a little more size, a little beef added there. And if that individual can also shoot and score, that would be delightful.
Yeah, I mean, you could use another shooter off the bench. I think Roddy Gale is going to be deeply missed on this team as well. But yeah, there's a whole lot to like in the young guys that we don't know a whole lot about. Costello, Hartman, McCoy, those guys are probably going to be asked to contribute quite a bit. Probably more freshman contributions are going to be asked of this year than it was this past year. But it's a really nice class coming in, and coming off of a national championship. Like obviously the expectations are going to be high, but it feels right to say that this group could meet those expectations.
Yeah, I think they're going to be outstanding yet again. I mean, that's just going to be the standard under Dusty May. That's what they're going to do. Keep an eye out for Juke Harris, obviously. But outside of that, is there anybody else you're hearing, or is it kind
Not
of Juke Harris or
really.
nobody?
Yeah, not really. I mean, a lot of their scholarship spots are kind of taken up already. Harris has been the one guy that they've been linked to. The pool's closed, so there's no new guys that can enter it. The exception would be if a new coach comes in. So I think if a coach gets fired or steps down, then guys on the roster get a 30-day window where they can enter the portal. But obviously, guys that are in the portal currently are still waiting to commit. You're kind of just in wait and see mode at this point because a lot of those guys are also testing the NBA draft. So it's a matter of if they want to stay in the NBA draft or if they want to get the NIL and come back to college and that kind of a thing. Harris is the one guy that I've seen them be linked to and stuff. And it'd probably be nice to get one more veteran guard off the bench and stuff to fill those LJ minutes, but maybe there's a surprise in there that we haven't quite seen yet. As we've seen, this Michigan staff kind of moves in silence a little bit on these recruits. Like we don't really hear rumblings of these guys until there's actually like movement in terms of the smoke going around in terms of that kind of a thing. So I'm sure there's somebody that we haven't even heard of yet that we haven't even considered that they're going after. But I think Harris is probably the one guy that's been the big link. And if you don't get him, like it's not the end of the world, right? Like you're just relying on the younger guys and relying a lot on Cadeau and McKinney to step up and improve within the program, get those transfer guys to improve within your program, and still got a good team moving forward. They're going to be one of, if not the favorite in the Big Ten, and there's going to be a whole lot to like, honestly.
I love it. Coming off a national championship, let's do a development year.
Yeah.
Let's show we can do it both ways. We can go get
Mhm.
guys in the transfer portal if need be. We'll just build out some guys. We'll make guys on our own. And
Yeah.
yeah, they'll still probably be a top 10 team coming into the season. It's a very, very exciting backcourt. Like I think Cadeau, McKinney, if you get Kaysen back, and then McCoy, the freshman, like that's a lot of juice right there. So I think that
Yeah.
right now I'm leaning is the strength of the team, even if Estrella ends up being your second best player or something.
And all the best teams that Dusty had at FAU were all guard heavy. So it's like this is like he's like as I've talked about many times with you guys, like he's an adaptable coach. He's going to get the most out of his roster. Like this isn't an old school college basketball coach is trying to fit guys into his specific system. He's building the system around the pieces that he has. And at this point, it's kind of like what we were talking about with Brad Holmes. Like you're going to give him the benefit of the doubt in terms of his roster construction and stuff. In terms of modern guys constructing college basketball rosters, I really don't think there's anybody better than Dusty right now.
No, no, and he's proven that. And in Dusty May, we trust. So whatever he does, I assume it will be correct. Sir, any final parting thoughts on this roster, Pistons, this Michigan basketball program in general?
No, there's a whole lot to like about it. I guess now that we're a month removed from the national championship, I guess how have you felt about the whole thing? Obviously, the championship itself is exciting, but with a few weeks under your belt now, do your feelings change about the future of the program, or is it kind of just like I'm just excited? The sky's the limit in terms of what Dusty is building here.
Brother, the championship glow of the football natty is still
Right.
upon me. Like this
Yeah.
basketball one is a fresh glow. I'm harmless. I'm out here in these streets just injecting myself with needles I find on the ground because nothing can hurt me. I'm
Yeah.
immune. I am immune and will be immune for some time. Everything Dusty does is right. Yeah, man, there's no panic. There's no concern. It's going to be a good team. We know we're not getting to last year's heights, but you're just not going to see me panic at all. Talk about having the right guy, the right men for the job. Like we're in such good hands. It'd be crazy to feel anything
I
other than just joy.
I just started watching that series on CBS, the Made for March, that like documentary series that
I've
followed
got
him
that
in
saved.
Kansas.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like obviously it's a documentary, so you kind of got to take some of it with a grain of salt. But like in terms of the mix of intensity as a coach, but also like the smartness in terms of holding guys accountable and being relatable to players, and it's just like he's 100% a guy that you want to play for. And now that he's established a track record at Michigan, that hey, if you're coming in the portal, like I can develop you into an NBA guy, and he has examples to point to now with Danny, with Vlad, with Yaxel. You kind of we haven't brought up in the 20 minutes that we've been recording about Michigan, but
Well,
yeah. Oh, by the way, there's this guy who's going to go top 10, top 15. Who
yeah, he's going
led
to
him
be
to
a
a
top
national
10 pick.
championship.
What else do you want to say?
Yeah, no biggie. But yeah, no, this guy truly feels like the limit, and I really think that Michigan's going to have a puncher's chance at national championship the entire time that Dusty is at Michigan. There's going to be some teams that are not going to be as good as others. You're probably not going to get the depth that you had this past year, but Michigan has now established itself as one of the blue blood programs in college basketball under Dusty May. And you don't have necessarily the traditions of a North Carolina or Indiana or a UCLA. But in terms of what modern college basketball is, thriving off the transfer portal, getting the most out of your young guys, developing guys from good college basketball players to good NBA players, while also turning them into helping them become quality young men at the same time. Like, I don't think there's anybody doing it better than Dusty is. Like, I've tried to stay objective through my whole career writing about it and stuff, but it's just praise after praise with what he's been doing, and it truly does feel like it's a home run hire, and it's going to continue to build here at Michigan.
Well said, sir. Kellen Voss, a polar bear of a man with a heart of gold. Nobody doing it like you. Where can the people check out your stuff, man?
Well, I'm writing for, I still write for WXYZ, one of the best news outlets here in Detroit. I did a lot of draft coverage coming up, but yeah, we got some more Pistons stuff, Tiger stuff coming up. And yeah, we'll see what's on the horizon. I like you to still check out the work of my friends at Mason Brew. I don't write there currently, but our friend Andy does, Trevor Woods does, Vaughn Lozon, all those guys are doing great work. Zach Libby, they just hired as a recruiting writer. Like, it's still the best place on the internet to get free Michigan content. I still say that to people whenever they ask me about it. Yeah, it's a great time to be a Michigan fan and a great time to be following Michigan sports on. So yeah, aside from all the negativity surrounding Sharon and that whole situation,
We
but
got through the whole podcast. Why?
yeah.
What are you doing here?
Well, I was singing the praises and the flowers of the program, and I had to, I couldn't just not bring up the butter knives, but
Only spit in my mouth when I ask for it, sir. That's all I ask of you. That's gonna do it.
That's fair.
Appreciate you, man. Appreciate your time. Thanks for the guest host on this one.
Of course. Happy to do it. Brought me back to my college radio days. So yeah, anytime you need me to pitch in with Andy's thing here, I'd be happy to do so.
All right, brother. Be well. Talk to you soon.
Of course. Take care.